Welcome to Target Market Insights, the Multifamily and Marketing podcast. Each week, John Kasman interviews multifamily and marketing experts to teach you how to find the best places to invest, attract investors, and grow your portfolio. You are listening to Target Market Insights with your host, John Kasman.
Welcome to Target Market Insights, the multifamily and marketing show. I'm your host, John Kasman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Now, if you're enjoying this show, please do me one quick favor and leave us that 5-star rating and review. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Now, today we're going to be talking to Todd Heitner. Todd Heitner has been helping real estate investors tap into the power of the internet to get leads for the past 15 years. Now, in recent years, he has focused on helping multifamily syndicators boost their credibility by showing them how to use technology to automate the process of gaining the trust and confidence of potential investors. Now, he'll be breaking down how to set up an effective marketing funnel to automate much of the money-raising process. Let's welcome to the show, Todd Heitner.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, Todd, thank you for joining us today. Why don't you take 1 minute and fill in some of the gaps on your background?
Okay, sure. Maybe on a personal level, I've been married for 19 years. My wife and I like to travel, so we've kind of tried to engineer our lives in a way that we can do that. We try to keep things simple so that we can have the freedom to travel and see different places. Maybe not as much of that at the moment while we're during the COVID-19 stuff, but still, that's something we enjoy doing. And then on a business level, for like you said, for the past 15 years or so, I've been kind of focused on helping investors, real estate investors, with their website and getting those. So we offer a website service. I saw a lot of investors struggle to get their website up and running. They kind of get bogged down in some of the details of that, maybe creating the content or the design. And so we, developed a system that helps make that less painful. We have designs and content already created, and this helps people get up and running quickly. So that's basically what I do. Yeah.
And Todd, you mentioned the website and just trying to help people get up and running. For folks who are saying, hey, I get it. I know website's probably helpful, but is it that important? Is it that critical? How do you approach it? Because it certainly is not the most important thing, but certainly has some benefits. So where do you say a website really comes into play and plays a role for investors?
Yeah, you can do it without a website, but it just, it's one of those tools that makes things easier. Just for example, you could cut down a tree with a pocket knife if you wanted to, or you could use a chainsaw, so we have things at our disposal that make things easier. And so a website one of the big things about it is for credibility. When you send investors there, people expect any business today to have a website, and it's sort of like if you don't have a website, it kind of instantly hurts your rating, in people's eyes. But on the other hand, if you do have a professional looking website, then it kind of allays some of the fears that people have, where they're questioning, is this guy legit? Is this a real company? Should I invest with them? But if you have a really professional looking website, it shows you've invested something into your business. You're not just a fly by night scam kind of thing, but you're invested in this as a business. And like I said, we expect that. We expect people to have a website. So it really does, just from that perspective, the credibility alone is pretty powerful.
Yeah, in 2020, having a website is pretty fundamental, right? You're not going to set the marketing world on fire by deciding to launch a website. It's pretty, table stakes at this point. As you said, primarily for credibility. We're living in a world where people want to understand what they're getting into, and we are being pushed to be more virtual, whether it be through pandemics that we can't control, or just the fact that we're living in a global environment where we can connect to people all over the world at any given moment now. So the only way to kind of verify is through the internet, right? Through websites, through, trying to get referrals and information like that. So having a website is certainly a key piece to reaching out and connecting with people. And I know you work primarily with real estate investors, many multifamily syndicators. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the types of websites or the kind of content that actually needs to be on that website to really have something that's effective.
Yeah, sure. So basically, you want to have something that says what you do. I mean, people need to know that that's what you're doing. Like if you're doing apartment syndication, for example, you need to mention that. But also, you do want to gear your message toward the person reading it, so that it's about them. If you talk just about apartments the whole time, then that doesn't necessarily isn't going to catch people's attention, make them want to invest with you. But on the other hand, if you show them the benefits of working with you, maybe the freedom that's going to give them, maybe they're putting their money in the stock market right now and not getting the returns they would like. So highlighting some of those things that are going to appeal to them, grab their attention, make them want to read more, make them want to learn how you can help them. That's pretty powerful. One of the things too is people, if they're coming to your website, they're wanting to check you out. They want to see, who is this? Should I invest with them or not? So one thing that I do recommend is having an About Us page or something like that kind of shows your team and who's there, what they do. Because I know on our own website, I've done testing on that to see, what people are clicking on, what's the most popular. And our About Us page is one of the most popular things. People want to see who they're dealing with before they make some kind of commitment. So that's definitely an important part. Offering something that people are looking for, something that'll grab their attention, because like a lead magnet or like a free report type thing, that can be really big, because sometimes people come there and they're just wanting to get information, but a lot of times they leave and you never hear from them again, because they may intend to go back, but they forget. And so having something there that people can put in their name and email and get something of value, but at the same time give you their contact information, is really powerful. I mean, otherwise you're wasting a lot of traffic to your website if you don't have some way to capture contact information and then have a way to follow up with them after that.
Yeah, you said three things that jump out to me. The first was an About Us section. Ultimately, someone's coming to your website to learn more about you, the product or services that you offer, and to determine whether or not that's a fit for themselves, the challenges they're facing, anything that they're looking for. So having that About Us, or just clearly communicating what you do, is very beneficial on your website. The second thing was messaging, right? Messaging that's not simply about apartments, but also what you can do for them, the types of people you help. Maybe they are in the stock markets and not happy with it, or maybe they just want to diversify because everything they own is in the stock market and they want to take some chips off the table and just diversify a little bit. So just making sure you highlight those facts. And then the third point was really making sure that you have some way to capture their contact information, whether that's through a lead magnet or, an About or a Contact Us page or something like that, where they can actually share their information. Now, I'm a big proponent of lead magnets. I am huge on it. I push everyone to make sure that you have an offer, something that's extremely compelling. We have our free sample deal package that we like to use. We're certainly, you're going to hear about it later in this episode. We do have that free download available on our website. That's been a great way to engage with people, to educate them, give them something of great value that they can learn from, they can utilize, and we continue to communicate with them beyond that. But I know that you really push for lead magnets too. What are some of the different lead magnets that you see being very effective when it comes to reaching out and connecting with potential investors?
Yeah, I mean, I guess some of it depends on your audience. Like if somebody's focused on a specific type of investor, if I was going to try to just target doctors, or some other, or somebody that I know that these people have money in the stock market, then I would want to gear my lead magnet toward that. But the stock market is kind of a general appeal, kind of the contrast between investing in the stock market with investing in multifamily real estate, for example. I know I've seen a lot of people using that. You can take a little more general approach, like why investing in multifamily real estate makes sense, just kind of introducing people to the topic of that. If it's completely new to them, they haven't thought of that before, you can have something more general like that, especially if your audience, your investors are kind of all over the place as far as who they are, like what business they're in, how they generate their income. But if you're going to focus on a certain, niche of investors that do a certain thing, then I would gear it toward that, like how, make it specific to that individual so that it really speaks to them and shows them how they can get the benefits that they're looking for.
Yeah, and listen, it's making sure that it's actually valuable for the end user. If you want people to download it, then it needs to be valuable to them. If it's something that they don't see as very valuable, they're not gonna do it, right? We've played around with different lead generation pieces, and I have clients that have played around with different pieces, and ultimately you want to kind of keep your eye on it to see how many people that are coming to the website are actually downloading the piece, are actually, engaging with you, engaging with your content. And that will tell you whether or not they're getting value out of it. Because if no one's downloading your lead generation piece, then it's not of value to them for some reason or another. So you got to find ways to change that up and make sure you are doing something that is more valuable. You also talked about, understanding who the audience is, and maybe it's doctors, maybe it's someone else. And as you go through all that process, it sounds like it could be a lot of work. I know some people listening are thinking like, man, that sounds overwhelming. To build the website out, to figure out who the audience is, to come up with this lead generation piece. Sounds like a lot of work. Talk to me a little bit about what are the steps that are involved in that process to build out the website, figure out who the audience is, and actually create that lead gen piece.
Yeah. And some of that, just like as far as like deciding on your audience, I think it's something you should do kind of early on in the process. If you are going to, really drill down and get a specific type of person, it's good to know that before you start, because all of your messaging kind of should be geared toward that. But if you're not going to do that, I mean, not everybody does. Sometimes people are just looking for investors in general. It could be any type of anybody that has money that they want to invest. So kind of knowing that up front, and then that helps you kind of, down the road. It's sort of like, with marketing, they talk about having an avatar in mind, like where who this person is that you're going to be speaking to, and you gear your message toward that. But if it's just an investor in general, though, then just, you don't have to maybe get quite as specific with that. And maybe that's the place to start. If it does sound like too much work, just say, do your messaging in a way that it will appeal to any type of investor. You can always, get it more specific later if you want to. But yeah, so then, but if you do know going into it that you want to have a certain type of person that you're focusing on, then that could affect even your business name. For example, I've seen people do that. They're focusing on a certain type of individual as an investor, and so they include that in their business name and their website address, all of their marketing messaging. But if that's overwhelming, you can always just start by being more general with it and having your messaging be more general. So it doesn't have to be. You don't have to start there. So.
Yeah, so I mean, you should have some sense of who you're targeting, right? So whether it's, even if you just know investors, at a core, that they have some money that they're looking to invest, right? So there's some very simple things. You don't have to necessarily drill all the way down to knowing how many dogs they have and where they live. I mean, it's certainly great to have that level of clarity, but at a minimum, at a very high level, that these are investors looking for information to help them determine where to invest their money, who to invest their money with, and to seek out the kind of returns that they're looking for. So you can certainly start high level. And I think for many folks, as they think about building out a website, and this is for any business, by the way, it's trying to also understand that process, because most people are not technical and skilled in the sense of understanding, Ahrefs and meta tags and metadata and all of these different things. And most people don't even know what the heck I'm talking about right now. But, many folks just simply don't understand that. So when it comes to building out a website, it can be overwhelming. I know that there are different websites out there, different hosts that are out there. Walk us through kind of the different variations, the options, and maybe even some of the templates that are available for people to leverage to get started quickly.
Sure. Yeah. So if we think about the different aspects of a website, part of it is your domain name. That's like your businessname.com. That's an important part of it. That's what people are going to remember. That's kind of part of your brand. So that's one thing. And then you need to connect that to hosting, web hosting. So web hosting, I think of it just being like a computer somewhere that you're running space on that has a high speed connection to the internet. And it just, when somebody types in your name.com, it pulls up these files that are your website essentially. And so, I found with hosting, you kind of get what you pay for a lot of times. There's really cheap hosting, but sometimes you're going to run into issues or the support won't be good. But there's a lot of options with hosting, but those are a couple of the main basic things you need. Then you need kind of a platform to build it on, like a content management system. The most popular one is WordPress. Probably most people have heard of that, at least on some level. So WordPress I really like because it is really flexible. You can do kind of whatever you want to with it. There are other systems. If you didn't want to deal with the hosting, you don't want to deal with WordPress, there's stuff like Wix and Squarespace, those kind of things that have it's just kind of a build it yourself type system. I've seen people use those. The downside of that, though, sometimes if you're trying to do everything yourself, is you can spend a lot of time, because if you're not a designer, or even writing the content, you can easily get bogged down in that and creating these things that you think, oh, it'll be quick, I'll just put it together, and you get in over your head and end up spending months on something that you thought would be a pretty short project. But so there's different options, but I personally use WordPress a lot. So WordPress is kind of I think of it as sort of like software. You install it on your web hosting, and then it basically lets you create a website. And there's a lot to it. We could spend hours just talking about WordPress, but some of the main elements of it is that you have themes, which are basically designs, and kind of gives you options. And then you have plugins that are like little tools that you plug in that make your website do some certain thing that you want to do. It gives you added functionality. So there are themes that already kind of have a design that looks a certain way that, if you find something that you like the look of, you can use it kind of as is and adjust that. Then there's others that are more flexible, that you can kind of build them out exactly how you want. Some of them, one that I use is called Divi, and it has a visual editor, so you can kind of build things out, make it look however you want to, or hire a designer to make it look however you want to. But it is very flexible. Those are kind of some of the main elements of that.
And Todd, for someone with minimal design skills, is WordPress an ideal choice? I mean, if you were trying to build it out yourself, I know one of the advantages that Wix and Squarespace and some of these other platforms has is the templates and the simplicity of the design. Whereas WordPress, it tends to be a bit more complicated as far as just understanding how to navigate it, but maybe you can elaborate there.
Yeah, that's kind of right. I think some of those systems that like Wix and Squarespace, those kind of things do have templates that, for somebody that's not, if you're trying to do it yourself, I guess that's the thing to decide is, are you going to do all the work yourself, or are you going to hire somebody to do it, or what approach will you take? Because if you're trying to do it all yourself, then probably you want to use something that's not really made for designers necessarily, but just made for an average person, a business owner, to build a website. And those kind of services are good for that. And that can be a good starting point, at least. It's a good way to get something up and running. WordPress, I find, though, is going to be more powerful. It's probably, with those other systems, you're going to eventually run into roadblocks where it doesn't do something you need it to do. And so then, or you might not be able to get it to look exactly the way you want. So that's where something like WordPress is more flexible, and even if you don't want to do the design yourself, you can hire somebody to do that. And they, there are people that's all they do is just design websites on WordPress. And if you know what you want, they can build that for you. Yeah.
What are some other drawbacks from using, say, you mentioned running into some challenges with a Squarespace or a Wix. What are some of those drawbacks or challenges or disadvantages of trying to go at it yourself versus hiring someone else and building on WordPress?
Yeah. So, there's going to be limits of how things look. It kind of has to work within their framework. Also, certain tools like contact forms and things, like a general contact form you can do, but if you want it to be a little bit more advanced, like, for example, like with our website service, we have an investor profile form where people fill out, who they are and are they SEC accredited, all that kind of stuff. And you can connect that to third-party services, like if you're using some kind of like a CRM, like something that will follow up with people automatically, or having it go somewhere else and do something else, then you can run into limitations with those. As you get farther along, you want to automate things more and connect your website to other tools and things. Typically, you're going to run into some limitations with some of those do-it-yourself website builders. That's kind of why I use WordPress, because I can make it do whatever I need it to do. There's not really any real limitations. Even if there's a lot of tools already out there, which is one thing that I really like about WordPress. There's thousands and thousands of plugins that are just tools, basically, you can plug into your website. And, somebody has probably already thought of whatever it is you need to do, and they've made a tool to do it. So you just plug it in, essentially. So I guess that's the thing of the flexibility with those kind of things, being able to connect it and make it do exactly what you want.
No, it's awesome. Appreciate you explaining that. So you talked about hosting. You've talked about kind of the platform to build, where we just kind of spent time talking about WordPress and its advantages to other platforms like Squarespace and Wix and other platforms there. So once you have it, and you talked about even being able to get a designer or someone else to help you build out the website, what does that time frame look like? Because I know some folks end up spending months building out a website, and others, don't spend quite as much time. So what does that time frame look like to build out a website?
Yeah, some of that depends, I guess, on if you're trying to do it all yourself, and you're also trying to do the other parts of running the business. You're trying to find deals, you're trying to find investors. It's probably going to take months because you're not really focused on it, and you're spread too thin. I recommend whenever people can, don't do it yourself, because it's not really the best use of your time. If you can afford to hire someone to do it, they do that. If you hire someone that does that for a living, they're going to be a lot more efficient at it. They're going to make it look better than you might if you don't have a design background. So, I do recommend that. With a designer, it kind of depends on what route you go. That's another thing where you sometimes get what you pay for. Not always, but in general, that's kind of the case, because if you find someone that's in a third world country, for example, that does it really cheap, you might have some communication issues. There might be some going back and forth where they just didn't really understand what you needed. I've run into that, and I know other people have too, where it's just the language barrier can sometimes be a problem. But it really depends a lot. I mean, like with our website service, for example, we have designs that are already made and content already written. So that's pretty quick, because people can just sign up and have a website where most of that's already there for them. In as little as the same day, but then, otherwise it can really range from, like, if you're doing it yourself, kind of from days to months, basically, depending on kind of how you're going about that. But
yeah, got it. So it really just depends on the time frame for someone to build that site out, who you're leveraging and who your contacts are there. So when it comes to the next step, right, we've talked about the website really being the avenue to connect with investors. So if you have the website up, people read it, you've had pretty good content, they learned about you, they decide they like your lead gen, they want to download it. Where do you go next? I mean, what should we be doing as kind of investors or business owners to engage with those potential leads as they come in and actually give us their email address?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for one thing, when somebody gives you their information, ideally you should be putting that into a system, something like I mentioned, a CRM, like a customer relationship management system, something like ActiveCampaign, for example. There's a bunch out there, MailChimp and others, but it's basically a way to follow up with people automatically by email. So you put them on a list, and then you can go in one time and program a series of emails to go out to people. And it's important to put thought into what you're sending them, because you want to kind of lead them through a process. You want to lead them. Your job really is to help them get to know you and like you and then trust you. That's kind of the elements of who we choose to work with, are people that we know, like, and trust. And so first off, they need to get to know who you are, what you do, something about you that they can kind of connect with a little bit. And then kind of build that relationship, give them things where they can start to get to know you and your business and why, and build some trust up so that they would eventually get to the point of wanting to invest, or at least learning more about investing with you. And so I would say, like, having a series of emails that go out to people automatically. That's an important part. But then also producing content on a regular basis is really, I think, ideal. Like, for example, it could be creating blog posts that you send out to your people on your mailing list. It could be doing a podcast. It could be creating videos. But sending something to them that educates them and also kind of positions you as an expert, because as you're producing this content, they start to see you as somebody that knows what they're talking about, somebody that is an expert in this field, and then they trust you more. And that's, if you're producing that kind of content, keeping regular contact with them, then when they're ready to invest, you're going to be the first one they think of. So those are some things that come to mind with that, having automation and creating regular content.
Yeah, and it's a long-term play, right? I mean, it's not something where someone comes to your website and they're immediately going to be ready to invest six figures with you. They need to get to know you a little bit. They need to understand your philosophy, and they want to make sure that you're going to be around. So, that's one of the things that they're looking for as well, just to get to know you, understand more about you, your business, your outlook, and all those things. But as they get more and more comfortable, then they may be willing to hop on the phone and talk to you more about investing and moving things to the next level there. Question for you. When you see people who are, clients, and you talk to other professionals, especially in the multifamily space, what are some of the big mistakes you see people making specifically when it comes to their website?
Well, I mean, a big part of it is just the creation process, because I know I've talked to people that you just get too bogged down on setting it up. One person I said he talked to, he's one of those website builders, and he said it took him 10 months to build his website. And so that's all that time lost, basically, like you couldn't, and it's also divided, your time is divided between working on the website and then trying to find deals or find investors. So that's one thing, is just trying to do everything yourself. But also not having a way to capture contact information. That's a pretty big thing. Also, sometimes some of those like do-it-yourself websites don't always look professional. I mean, it depends, but it can. But if you're don't have experience with design, sometimes it looks like a do-it-yourself website, which I think can kind of actually undermine your credibility a little bit. So those are a couple of things I would say. But I think one of the biggest things is just getting the time, getting bogged down in that. Sometimes it's the content creation, like writing all the content. People, because you do want to get your messaging right, but at the same time, I've seen people delay setting up their website. They're going live with it for months because it's not perfect. So maybe that's another aspect, is not trying to get it perfect up front initially. You can always improve it later, but get it, where it's going to do the job, and you can always improve things later.
No, Todd, I love it. I think your point right there is spot on. Don't spend so much time building out your website that you have halted your business from the ability to actually start moving forward. So get it up. I mean, make sure it looks professional. Make sure it helps to build credibility. Make sure it's of value for your audience. It's adding value, answering questions, giving information about you, and has a lead generation piece or some mechanism for people to connect and engage with you. Because if they come to your website, they have a great experience, but there's no way for you to get to know who they are, then you've done yourself a disservice. So you definitely want to make sure you're capturing those email addresses in some way or capacity on your website. And if you do those things, you're setting yourself up for success. But by all means, do not wait. Don't take 6 months, 9 months, a year building out the perfect website, because I assure you, when you think you're done, you're going to find some other stuff you want to change and tweak on the website. It just happens. I mean, everyone I change my site up all the time. I know everyone else does too. And there are little tweaks. It might be something that maybe people don't catch, but we're always tweaking with the website. So it's never perfect. Get it 80, 85% there and go.
Yeah. It's kind of like owning a house. The work is never done. There's always something more that needs to be done.
That's right. Real estate investors should completely understand that, right? There you go. Yeah. Let's move on to our bullseye round. You ready?
Sure.
Give me a failure or an apparent failure that sets you up for later success.
Yeah. So it was a failure to fully commit and follow through. So I talked about our website service for multifamily investors. We have a website service for single family investors too. And we've been doing that probably longer than any of our competitors. We had a great product, but then a competitor came along and offered essentially the exact same thing that we were offering. Same technology, same setup, a higher price, but they did a better job with marketing and forming relationships with people in the industry. So before I knew it, they were paired up with everybody in the industry. So everybody was an affiliate for them. They were sending people to them. And I think that one mistake probably cost us millions of dollars in the long run. I've tried to learn from that mistake. So when we got into doing websites for multifamily investors, I've really focused a lot more on building relationships with people, getting our brand out there, making sure people know who we are. Because it doesn't matter how good you are at what you do. If people don't know about you, it doesn't do you any good. So with any business, half of your job is to know what you're doing and deliver value, but the other half is to get your name out there and make sure people really know who you are and what you do. So in other words, marketing, basically.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
One resource, I'll try to pick something that maybe is less common and people don't know about. One thing I've been using lately is called Toby. It's an extension for Google Chrome, the web browser. And basically what it does is it's kind of like bookmarks, but a little bit different. You can save like little folders of web pages, basically. So when you open a new tab, it has these different categories of things you've saved. And one thing that I really like is that, a lot of times when I'm working, I have like 20 web browsers open, different tabs. And sometimes you need to switch tasks, you need to do something different. And you need to get rid of all those, but you don't want to lose them because you're going to forget it and you'll never find them again. So it has an option to save your session. So it'll just save all of those into a little group. And so later you can go in and just open them all back up again, or individual ones. So it's called Toby, and it's just a Google Chrome extension.
Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
So this is not a business book, but it is one that I've found really beneficial. It's called 10 Lessons to Transform Your Marriage. And while it's definitely beneficial for marriage, it definitely helped my wife and I, but also even in other relationships too. It just helps you to be a better communicator. I've found I really like how they break down conversations and line by line tell you if it's a positive or a negative for the overall conversation, what it's contributing or taking away and why. And I found that to be really helpful to, before you say something, think about how it's going to impact the conversation and the other person. So it's really kind of a practical thing, I think, for any kind of conversation or any relationship.
Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
Having a morning routine. I try to include some exercise. I do either like journaling or affirmations, and that really helps me to stay connected to where I'm at in relation to where I want to be. I do journaling, and I kind of break it down by different categories of my life, and I kind of rate where I'm at in relation to where I want to be and what I want to change. And that really has made a big difference for me to try to keep connected to those goals.
What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out?
Maybe how much work it is to actually run a business. I know that I've always been entrepreneurial, and I always thought of, the benefits of it, the freedom and things like that. But I know really getting into it, I wasn't really realistic. So I think a lot of us maybe read books like 4-Hour Workweek and think of all that freedom we want to have. But and you can get to that point, but a lot of people don't, and a lot of times people are more tied down with a business than they are with a job. So it's something you can achieve, but it does take a lot of work in the meantime to get to that point where you do have the kind of freedom that you want to have. So not to say that I wouldn't have started a business, but I think if I had a more realistic expectation going into it, it would have helped along the way to see the work that I'm doing as something that's getting me toward that goal, and just basically be more realistic with it.
And Todd, where are you located right now?
I'm actually in Pennsylvania, kind of in the middle of Pennsylvania. I just recently moved here, actually.
What part of Pennsylvania?
The town is called Huntingdon. It's kind of in between Altoona and State College, so basically right in the center of the state.
Yeah. So. Okay. Well, you're new to the location, so you may not have a great answer yet, but maybe you've done some research. But give me your favorite place to grab a bite, so far at least, in middle of PA.
Sure. In this area, Yeah, it's been kind of limited, but there's a restaurant called Boxers that I like a lot. They have like good all around food, and I will give you a resource from where I've spent more time, which is in the Roanoke, Virginia area. There's a place called the Jerk House, which has really awesome jerk chicken. So I've spent more time there, so I can tell you better there. But
awesome. So those sound like two great options for us. And we'll definitely make sure we put those on our list and we keep those in mind next time we're in Roanoke or when we get out to the central PA. Listen, Todd, you've given us a lot of great information so far about websites, how to use websites, things to consider when looking for, hosting or the platform to build the website on, as well as the types of information we need to have in our website. So thank you for sharing so much information there on website development for us to engage and connect with potential investors. For listeners who want to learn more, maybe learn more about your services, what is the best way for them to reach out and get in touch?
Sure. If you go to our website, apartmentinvestorpro.com, that's the best way to do that. Or you can send an email to support@apartmentinvestorpro.com, and we'd be glad to answer any questions you have. And we can go from there.
Todd, thank you again for coming on Target Market Insights, the Multifamily and Marketing Show.
All right. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.